girl shit. Ay. Lay on my stomach, toot it up, do the cry, baby. Look back, hold it open, now he annihilated. Moaning like a bitch when he hit this pussy. Damn, he probably wanna wear my hoodie. Choke me, spank me, look at me, thank me. If I give it to another nigga, he'll hate me.
Hey sir, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making a wig using 4 bundles and a frontal with some hair that I got off of Amazon with a seller by the name of brand N-2. I got 4 bundles of 20, 22, 24, 26, and an 18-inch frontal. This hair was 9A water wave. So I got a photo shoot coming up and I wanted to do something fun for Valentine's Day, so I decided to do like a dark copper color, if you will. So the first thing that you want to do whenever you're bleaching, coloring, lightening, any type of hair with a texture, you will always want to brush out that curl pattern or that wave pattern. Always start from the bottom, never start from the top when you're brushing it out, only because when you start from the top, it will cause shedding. To be honest, I was a little skeptical about getting this hair off at Amazon because usually when I do get a type of hair with a wave pattern or a curl pattern, the hair tends to shed a lot. But bringing this hair out of the package, running my fingers through it, it was really quite soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish brushing out that wave pattern with all the bundles, and you're going to do the same exact thing with the frontal. But with the frontal, you're going to go back and forth and work your way up. You're going to do that so your hair don't shed as well. So of course, when lightening hair, you always want to use some type of bleach lightener. I always go to my go-to, which is the BW2 powder, and I would tend to vary from 40 developer or 50 developer. For my color, I did not want to do the rinse this time, the semi-permanent, only because in my photo shoot, I was thinking about getting into the water. So what I was gonna do is I was gonna put the permanent dye on it. That way the permanent dye will be locked in and it won't go anywhere. When the hair gets wet, it won't be any type of bleeding. So with the BW2 powder, I usually put 4 scoops in per bundle. And with my developer, I usually eyeball it. And with your consistency, you want it more like a pancake mix consistency. You always want it that type of consistency where it's not that thick, it's not that watery, well, it's not that loose. And what that's going to do is it's going to stick and it's going to saturate the hair evenly. So right before I go in with my lightener, I always want to go back in one more time and brush through the hair just to make sure that there's no kinks or bumps or anything in it that's going to have some of the hair a little darker than the other. And then I just go on in with my hands, because I do have gloves on, and I saturate that throughout all of the hair. And I don't stop until I feel like that the hair is completely saturated with the lightener. You really want to work that bleach in there as good as possible. I'm sorry if I keep calling it bleach. I am ghetto. In hair school, we call it lightener. So you want to work that hair lightener in there as good as possible, and you're going to complete that process throughout each bundle. Keep in mind that you want to keep an eye on the time because you don't want your bundles to be dry and brittle. I recommend doing it the way I'm doing it because, to be honest, you don't want that color to bleed, so I'd rather use the permanent. If you're going to use the permanent, you definitely want to keep an eye on the time because, being that you're using the permanent, you're going to be double processing the hair. For the frontal, I'm doing it the exact same way. I'm just going in with the lightener and I'm going in real heavy to get it distributed throughout there evenly. Then I'm going to flip it over, do the knots, bleach the knots at the same time, and I'm just going to keep working the lightener throughout the frontal. Okay, so I cannot stress it enough to keep an eye on that time. Being that we're using the BW2 lightener with the 40 volume developer, you only want to let that lightener sit up there for at least 20 minutes, 25 at the most. So after letting each bundle sit for 25 minutes as well as the frontal sit for 25 minutes with the lightener up there, I went ahead and rinsed it off camera, and I shampooed it with the N-2 grapeseed strengthening shampoo, and then I rinsed it. I did not condition it yet because I'm about to go ahead and put the permanent hair color on the bundles, but before I do that, I'm gonna flip my frontal over and I'm gonna spray that with the Got to Be Glue freeze spray. So when it's time for me to go ahead and put the color on the frontal, it won't bleed through the lace, and you don't want that to be on your lace because it's gonna look like you had a bad dye job. So what I'm doing now is I'm mixing the color with the developer as well as the oil that comes in the little box. I mix all three of those together because I do want the hair to still have moisture. I don't want the hair to be dry, being that we are double processing the hair because we bleached the hair at first and now we're putting a permanent on the hair. So I got a little irritated when I was using the nozzle, so I went ahead and I unscrewed it. What you're gonna do with the color, you're gonna put the color on exactly the way you put the lightener on. You wanna get that distributed evenly. I got 3 boxes of the Cream of Nature color. So that means that it was 1 box for each 2 bundles, and then for the frontal I did a box for itself. Then you're gonna work that throughout the hair real good or whatever. And then you're gonna place it in a plastic bag. I put it in a plastic bag so to be neat and won't get on anything. Also, so it'll process evenly. Then I went ahead and I put a plastic bag on my wig head only because when it's time for me to make the wig, I don't want the wig head wet. So I put the plastic bag on the wig head and I went ahead and I got the T-pins and I'm putting them inside the front of the frontal. I don't really put them in the back because for the simple fact is I'm going to be brushing the hair and combing the hair back so it don't get on the lace. And now I didn't remove the nozzle for this part because you want it to be as neat as possible. So I go in some sections side by side, and I don't put it directly on the lace or on the scalp. I'll put it on the root and then I'll start working my way through, like brushing it through it with my hands. And then I'll take like a rat tail comb and I'll start pushing the color back throughout the frontal. And then I'll work my way up back to the front and I'll do the same thing on the front. Getting the color, once again, distributed evenly. You don't want any blotches, dark spots or light spots throughout the frontal. Off camera, I went ahead and I rinsed the frontal once again in the bundles. Then I went ahead and I put the N-2 conditioner in, the grapeseed conditioner, and I let that sit for about 20 minutes. I rinsed that, and now I'm pinning the frontal on the dome cap. How I pin my frontal onto the dome cap is I fold it slightly in the middle, and then I use the middle to find the apex, and then I go from side to side, and I pin each side down. After pinning each side down, I go in with my needle in one spot, and then I go in again in that same spot to secure it, just to make sure that the frontal is not going anywhere, it's not gonna slide. And then I start sewing regularly. After, I wanna say every 2 to 3 times that I loop it through regularly, I will go ahead and knot that around. What I mean by knotting that around is I will bring the needle through, but before I bring the needle all the way through, I'll take the thread that is hanging around that twice before I pull the needle all the way through. Right here, I was running out of thread with this needle, so what I did was I just kept going down until I reached the bottom, and when I reached the bottom, I went back up, and then I started sewing in the same spot just so it could secure because I didn't have enough to knot the end of it. Okay, so starting your first bundle sewing in, what I do is I put my needle through the dome cap at the frontal one time, and then on the second time when I put it through, I go ahead and go through the width of the bundle. and then I secure it and I knot it, and then I go through in the same spot once again in the bundle with all three, the frontal, the dome cap, and the bundle, and that secures it. I knot it as always, and then what I do is I just start sewing it regularly. With the bundles, I don't skip every like 2 to 3 parts. I try to do it like, if not every part that you sew you want to knot it, every other part. Right here, I actually slowed it down so you guys can see what I mean when I say I actually knot it. So I go in, I don't go all the way through, and then I wrap the thread around the needle, and then I pull the needle through. That's how you knot it. When it's time to flip the hair over, how I do, the hair that's on the bottom, I actually connect that to the frontal. The hair that's on the top, which is going to be closest to flip over, what I do is I stop that like 2 centimeters away from the frontal, and then I pull the hair back after I sew it in those 2 positions. I pull the hair back and I hold it down with my other hand, with my index finger and my thumb, and I sew over it, and then I just continue to start sewing it back in the other direction, the way that I sewed it in the first direction, but in the opposite direction. If that makes sense. You get it? Got it? Good. Okay. So bear with me. I know I keep getting in the way. This is my first time recording myself, so I know next time what my angles are and what not, and where not to stand. Also, I had a coconut scrub on my face, so if you see like some stuff on my chin area, that's what that was. Okay, so right here what I'm doing is, being that when we dyed the hair, most of the hair did not get saturated all the way through. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting a piece out that's close to the color of the frontal, so when it's time to part the frontal, you'll be able to see nothing that's gonna be dark or miscolored. It's gonna be a flawless transition. Of course, you go back and forth until you get to the top of the frontal. What I do is I always double my tracks in the back, because I always get 4 bundles. That's why I do that. And then in the top, what I do is I single them, because you want that look to be so flat. You don't want nothing to be bulky or bulging out. Like, that's not flattering. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm closing it up. Actually, what you're gonna do is the same thing you did when you were starting your first bundle. Is you're gonna attach the bundle, well, the single track, the frontal, and the dome cap all together and sew it along the line. And then just trim off the excess thread and the excess track. This is how the inside of your wig should look. So right now what you're going to do is you're going to cut off the excess of the spandex dome cap, because you're not going to want to see that under the wig, because it's going to look black, and we're going to put down a nude cap for install. Anyway. Right here I'm taking the olive oil ORS frizz cream, and I'm gonna put that on the frontal because I'm about to hot comb it back to get whatever I want to plug out the way. So it'll be easier for me to see what I'm taking out. So I go ahead and I lay that down and I comb that in with a rat tail comb, and then I go in with the hot comb and I start pushing that back. On the sides, I do it the same, but a little differently at the same time. I take my rat tail comb and I go down and I part a little bit out. That's what I'm going to use as my baby hair. And then I go in with the ORS cream frizz cream again, and I do the exact same thing, but this time what I'm going to do is the hair that I parted to the front, I'm going to push that to the front because it's going to be my baby hair, because I'm not going to want to touch that. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead in and start plucking. With plucking, that's going to be trial and error, because your first time you might need to work on it a little bit. Being how I pluck mine is, as you can see, I go up and down, back and forth with my plucking, and I take my rat tail comb and I keep combing through it as I'm plucking so I can see what I'm taking out, because I don't want to over pluck. And you just keep going back and forth to see how you want it. It's really up to you. How I want mine is, I want mine where it's gonna, I don't want it to be bald, but I want it to be where you can, where my lace is gonna look like my scalp, basically. They're gonna think my lace is my scalp. Then I'm gonna take that up into the top of it, like where your forehead is at its highest point. Big ass forehead. But then I'm gonna go ahead and into the baby hairs, and I'm gonna thin it out, because you don't want your baby hairs that thick. So I just go in and I thin it out, put a little bit of gaps in it so it'll look a little bit more natural. So when I cut it and I lay them, you won't be able to tell that they're that thick. Then you're gonna do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Now you guys, with me making this video, it's just me showing you guys how I make my wigs. Basically, if you guys want like a one-on-one on like plucking, or one-on-one on like bleaching knots or anything like that, just let me know and I'll personally make the video. I don't mind. But you're gonna do that on the exact same side that you did it on the opposite side. The same exact thing. So you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this video up. Let me know what you think about how I make my wigs. Let me know if you want any one-on-one tutorials on how I do anything. Make sure you please like, comment, and subscribe. Share with a friend. Follow me on Instagram at glamour_Ken. And also like my Facebook at The Fairy Glam Mother. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And see you guys later.